In the legal world, there is a combination of forces that feed a corrupt and suffocating legal system for attorneys. Law schools, law professionals, judges, and even the firms themselves for whom you work create a system, a matrix, if you will, that is nothing like what you thought when you passed the bar exam. The purpose of this podcast is to help you escape this legal matrix, leading you out of the proverbial desert to be free of the bondage of the matrix. Hosted by Bryce D. Nyer, attorney at law with over 30 years experience in the trenches of civil and criminal litigation at the state, federal, and international levels. He's a highly accomplished and resourceful legal professional, a true master of his craft, and he's here to help you get your life back. Here's your host, Bryce D. Nyer.
All right. This is Bryce D. Nyer coming at you from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, now called Fort Liberty, but I never call it that. So we're here for another episode of Escape the Legal Matrix. An attorney's, freeing himself or herself from the bondage of what? Of the legal matrix. So what are we going to talk about today, tonight, whatever time zone you're in? Well, we're going to talk about stop living with ghosts. That's right. And you're like, Bryce, what does that mean? Stop living with ghosts. What are you talking about? Well, I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about. You live with ghosts when you live with your past and you attempt to change things that you cannot. You cannot change the facts of what happened in the past. And you cling on to people, things, or events that they're no longer there. And so what happens is you compete with ghosts. And that has happened in my life too, where I have compared myself or compared my life or compared my relationships to things in the past. And many times in my life when I have had the death of loved ones, whether it was a family member or somebody that a few years ago I was deeply cared about, deeply in love with, and that person died of cancer. And it took me a long time to regain what we call balance. Remember the 5 domains of body, being, balance, business, and then, of course, fulfillment. But if you continue to live with ghosts, if you continue to compete with ghosts, you can't move forward in life. And you certainly cannot move forward in the legal field for you law students, you young lawyers, when you are clinging to the past and clinging to ghosts. And you will find, as you grow older, that you will continue at times to pine, which means to desire, for people that are no longer in your life, things that are no longer in your life. And many times I used to sit in my office and I would pop a beer and I would listen to certain music from when I was in high school or college. I would pull out photo albums of friends, family, what you want to call better times, yesteryear. And it would cause me, at first, I would smile and I would remember the times, but then it would cause me pain. And it would cause me pain because I wanted to go back in time. I wanted to just grab the pictures and just throw myself into the picture like if I was magic, to where I could be there at that moment again. And it was a sad realization for me when I realized I just sat upright and I was going to sip on the beer, and I discovered I couldn't do it because yesterday was in fact gone. And the only day that was there that moment was that moment. And too often we find ourselves, at least I find myself, fighting this war of the ghosts. And in that war, it's an everyday battle because life is so filled with obstacles and sedations and pits that we will long for anything or anybody to come save us. And then you realize there's nobody coming to save you. And it is a harsh, harsh reality. It is not something fun to admit. It's not something that we all desire to have, but it's true. And so for you law students, you're in this academic environment. You're in this environment where a lot of you have just come out of college, and you're now beginning to realize that law school is not undergraduate. You're not back at the sorority house, the fraternity house. You don't have as much freedom or time-wise because of the demands and rigors of your studies in law school versus undergraduate. Now, you're still a lot more free than lawyers actually out there owning, operating, leading law firms, or as associates working for somebody else. And you're still in this world of academia. But you will still pine for, and you will still want to keep in touch with classmates from undergrad, only to realize they have moved on to other things, and you are swamped with your studies and eventually approaching the bar exam where you will have no contact with anybody until after the bar exam. And when you commence your legal career in the legal matrix, at first it's going to seem very, very exciting. You've got a new job, you've got money coming in, you feel like you're somebody. And then as time goes forward and you're working yourself to death, working for somebody else, you will begin this process of fighting with ghosts. And it's not a matter of if it will happen, it's just a matter of when. And I find that most people commence this battle with ghosts typically when they get in their 40s. There's just something about being in your 40s that you realize, like, well, the 30s are gone and you're heading into your 50s, and you've been out of high school clearly over 20 years, maybe more. You've been out of college at least probably 20 years, maybe more. And there is so much life that has happened between the time you were in high school or the time you were in college or the time you graduated law school that some people are no longer alive. You may have gone through a divorce. You may have had bad breakups with friends or girlfriends or boyfriends or even family members. And you cling on to the ghosts of the past. And it then becomes a daily battle, because what it causes you to do is it causes you to live in a land of delusion and deception, because you get caught up in this karma cul-de-sac of insanity, and it will drive you to insanity because you're trying to reach back to be with people or to be in certain places that you just can't be. Now, for sure, you can always, go back to visit your college campus, your high school, your law schools. I mean, you can physically go there, but the problem is it's not the same. See, it's a new day, it's a new dawn, it's the future now. You're in the present, but it's the future from what it was when you were there in the past. And the people aren't there. And you now, even in your own high school, your own college, your own law school, you feel like a stranger. Because it's not your time anymore. You had your time in the sun, and now it's gone, and the sun has, it's set. And now you're in this new nation, this new world. You're in this as a lawyer in the legal matrix. And the legal matrix doesn't really care about you. It doesn't care how well you're doing. It only wants consumption, to consume you, to consume your time, to consume your freedom, everything. That's what the legal matrix does in its corrupt, cancerous way. And the more you attempt to break free of the legal matrix and reach back for the past, the more pain you're going to feel. And that happens. And that's happened in my life. I can remember so many times and so vividly when I was just alone, and I would, my staff would go home. I'd be there by myself. I'd put some music on and I would sit there. Sometimes I would do it for maybe 2 or 3 hours. And I just didn't want to go home. And I just kept wishing and wanting and desiring. It was like, God, if I could just go back, if I could just do it over, if I could just be with this person, if I had just married this person, if I had just done A, B, and C, or taken a different path, a different career. And you begin to torture yourself because the ghosts of the past, they're in the past. And they will dance around your head during the day. And even when you go to bed at night, when like me, you may awaken at 1 or 2 in the morning and you allow your thoughts to wander all over the place. And see, this is what happens when you start getting into pits and sedations and you start dancing with the ghosts. You lose your focus, you lose your clarity, and if you're not careful, you'll lose yourself. And it's going to be a daily battle in the legal matrix not to want to do that. And that's why I was so alarmed recently when I read the most recent studies about the well-being of lawyers in the legal profession, i.e. the legal matrix. And I'm still astounded even now, weeks later after, reading this report, that attorneys under 30 in the surveys that they did had the highest thoughts and ideations of suicide, that their lives were so miserable. And I can remember during my tenure here in the legal profession, i.e. the legal matrix, that at times I felt like this heavy stone, this heavy rock, just this big boulder just on my chest to where I almost couldn't breathe. And part of that stemmed from my complete, utter disgust and unhappiness of where I was in body, being, balance, business, and fulfillment, because I wasn't fulfilled at all. And I found that the more I attempted to go back to the past, the more I attempted to dance with ghosts, the more I reached out for the ghost, so to speak, the more pain, the absolute pain it would cause me. And it seems like it's almost like an addiction if you let it. Because for a short period of time, it gives you this mental or emotional high to remember people or things or events. And then they're just not there. And then it's like coming off like a sugar high. You come down hard. You come down hard and you come down fast. And man, gravity, the reality gravity, I call it, the gravity of reality, it pulls you down quickly. And you come in at warp speed when you come back down to reality. So as you progress and as you grow older, it's going to be absolutely critical in the area of balance. Okay, balance your relationships with your spouse, or maybe your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your children, siblings, parents, friends, colleagues, whatever it is. You have to let go of things that are toxic to your life. You cannot hang on to the past, and you cannot hang on to the ghosts. I wish my mother was still alive to see my son graduate from college and get commissioned as an Army officer. I wish my brother was still alive. I wished one of my sisters was still alive. And I wished certain people that I clearly loved in my life were still alive. But they're not. And they're gone. And they're not coming back, at least not in this life. So you may believe in reincarnation, but I do not at all. And it is a sobering reality if you really just stand up and take a look at what are the facts of your life today and where are you in body, being, balance, in business and fulfillment. And you look at what your past was. And maybe you're not giving yourself enough credit for the benefits of improving your life from what it was in the past. And it's really difficult. You don't know what your life would have been. So when you say, if I could do this, if I could go back, I would have done things differently. I mean, I've said that a million times. You don't know what the future would have held for you. Your condition could be really a lot different. Maybe you'd be dead. Maybe you'd be in prison. Maybe you would have clearly married somebody that you thought you really wanted to be with, and it turned out to be a train wreck. And sometimes, as I've always said, you have to be careful what you wish for, because you may get it. You may get it. And sometimes wanting is more fulfilling than getting. And I've learned that in my life as well, too. And that's what I'm trying to impart upon you law students and you brand new lawyers who are just entering this abyss of insanity, this legal matrix. This is one of the things you're going to have to grapple with, because it's going to happen. You may be right out of law school at age 25, just taking the bar in your first job. You're young, you're in your 20s, you're healthy. Maybe you're in a good relationship, you're in a good place. But eventually that excitement, it's going to wear off. It's going to wear off. And you're going to be strapped down with the day-to-day boring things that you have to do, the deadlines, the collisions, the arguments, your bureaucracy. And then it's just not exciting anymore. And then you start to do things you shouldn't do in order to fulfill that excitement. And those become what we, of course, call sedations and pits. They become the addictions, whether it's alcohol or illegal drugs or porn or sleeping too much or not working out or eating junk food or consuming tons of sugar or getting in illicit relationships. This becomes part of the hub when you don't let go of the ghost, when you dance with the ghosts. And you're going to have to learn. You really are. You're going to have to stand up and you're going to have to grapple with who you are and what you are. And you have to accept that your past is past and you cannot change it. And that people that were once alive and are now dead, they are gone and they're not coming back. And you have to realize, too, that maybe relationships you had in the past that did not work out, maybe they weren't meant to work out. And I've always said about marriage, well, here's what my mom said. My mother said, it's not that, for example, that marriage is a miracle. She said, and I quote, the miracle is that marriage works at all. Yeah, that was a pretty sobering thought. I mean, I was like, wow. And my mother was, she was, marriage is marriage and that's it, man. She was certainly not a fan of all these people moving in together and living together before marriage and all that. Not at all. And you know what? She's right. Probably right. Some people say, I should live together. I mean, that's a topic for another day. But the point she made was that, again, when in life is going to throw you pits and curves and obstacles. And if you resort to sedations and pits in order to grapple with dancing with the ghosts, you're not going to fare well in life. And it took me a long time. It really did. It took me a long time to let go of people, to let go of the past, to let go of events and places that I so desired to go back to. And I'll share with you, like when I go home, many times when I go home to Florida where I grew up, it's great to see the beach. It's great to see some of my friends. Some of them really, they've changed. Some of them have not. And to see some of my family. But I discovered and I realized that it's not necessarily home anymore. There's a lot of people that are no longer alive, people that have moved. It's the area, Tampa Bay area where I grew up, it's just condos and buildings and it's just doubled or tripled in size, including the population. And even as many people as I know, I still feel now when I go down there at times, I feel very alone. And I drive down streets that, everything seems smaller. It seems so much bigger when I was younger in high school or college. And it just doesn't seem the same. It doesn't have the same flavor. It doesn't have the same gravitas. And I realized that actually I feel like I'm a stranger in my own land. And the past, while I had a great childhood, I loved my high school, I loved my friends, I loved college every day of it, but it's gone. And I want to share with you too, on the day that I graduated from college, and I went 4 years, regular 4 years, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior, I got commissioned as a second lieutenant on graduation day. And after graduation and we got commissioned, I was walking back to my car. And I was in my uniform. It was hot. I mean, it's hot. Florida's May. It was exceedingly hot. But I had my uniform on underneath the gown. I took the gown off, and I'm walking across from the auditorium, going back toward my dorm to get my car in order to drive back home to Clearwater before I report in 2 weeks later for my officer basic course as a lieutenant. And as I'm walking, I noticed something. There was nobody around me. Everybody was gone. The dorms were empty. I mean, we had all these thousands of people there for the graduation, family members, and all of a sudden it was just gone. And I realized, man, 4 years it's gone. I'm not coming back in August. I mean, this is it. College is over. I'm a lieutenant. I'm on active duty. I'm an adult. I'm going to go overseas in a few months. And it just hit me. And I sat there and honestly, I started to tear up. And I just kept looking around. I'm like, where are my friends? Where is everybody? And I got to my car and I got in my car and I'm like, I'm just looking around in the dorm. It's like a ghost town and everybody's gone. And that whole drive home, it hit me that my 4 years in college was done and it was past. And when I got overseas, I didn't know anybody. I was alone. I was a young, brand new lieutenant. I was 22. And I really had not really lived in snow very much at all. I mean, of course, growing up in Florida, you don't. And I remember when I got to Germany, it snowed early and it was very cold. And I got my first apartment and we were short of lieutenants and I didn't know anybody. And I began to get on the telephone after having a couple German beers, calling back to the States to all my friends. Of course, then a month later, I got the phone bill and stopped that pretty quickly. That's another story for another day. But I was hanging on. I was clinging on to college. I was clinging on to the past. And college was done. It was over. Graduated. I'm overseas. I'm a lieutenant. I'm in my unit. I have my first platoon. And I felt this feeling of dread coming over me. And I should have been really more excited because here I was in Europe, which very few people have the opportunity to go. And I was getting paid to be there. I had a job there. I had a place to live. And I was going to get to live there for a couple of years. But the problem that came up was in that immediate time frame, I clung to ghosts. The ghosts of yesterday and yesteryear, of high school and college. And it was a new dawn and it was a new day. And when I came home a couple years later, back to the United States, I actually served overseas 5 years and 2 months straight before I permanently came home again. When I came home, it was I felt completely different. And I missed the folks I had served with, but it was time for me to come home. And once I graduated law school, here's another thing. I barely hear from or see any of my law school classmates at all. I mean, at all. I think I've seen maybe less than 5 out of my class since I graduated law school, and they just don't tend to keep in touch. They go on with their lives. But one thing I have learned, and I want you to learn, is that there are great paths and great possibilities ahead for you in the legal profession if you escape the legal matrix. And if you have the blessing, and if you have the ruthless commitment to open, to own, to operate, and to lead your own law firm, your life is going to be very different. It's going to be very, very different. And if you focus on the domains of body, of being, of balance, and business, and fulfillment, and you go through the process and the pain of letting go of the ghosts, to stop dancing with the ghosts, to stop seeking the ghosts of the past, of people, places, or things and events, your life will be fulfilling. I can personally attest to that. It has taken me a couple of years now of not just doubling down, but tripling down on letting go of the ghosts of my past. It's a very serious subject. It's something that I want you to think about. So what I want you to do is, where in your world are you holding on to ghosts? Where in your world are you dancing with the ghosts? What ghosts do you need to let go of forever and just let them go and don't interact with them? I want you to think about that. I want you to write it down. And then I want you to write down your answers. I want you to seriously take a look at it. Because, folks, I'm telling you, if you hang on to the ghosts, you'll become the walking dead, the living dead, and you'll be a ghost yourself in this life. Okay, this is Bryce D. Nyer. It's been great being here with you on Escape the Legal Matrix, an attorney's, running away from bondage of the legal matrix. So I look forward to our next episode. Again, until then, love and light, love and light. This is Bryce D. Nyer coming at you from Fayetteville, North Carolina, home of Fort Bragg, also known as Fort Liberty, but I'm not going to call Fort Liberty. Love and light. I am out of here.